Today is May 31st. What did they actually accuse Jesus of? Let's find out together as we study Mark 14, 53 to 59. So in our passage today, they have arrested Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And we pick it up as they bring Jesus to the high priest's home. Mark chapter 14, verse 53. They took Jesus to the high priest's home where the leading priests, the elders, and the teachers of religious law had gathered. That's a grouping of the Sanhedrin. Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and went right into the high priest's court. There he sat with the guards, warming himself by the fire. Now, the people who gathered together were members of the Sanhedrin. Mark doesn't say it was the Sanhedrin who met. It seems like he's making a point here. It's actually not the legal body. They're actually not meeting where the Sanhedrin normally met. This is a kangaroo court. Jesus is being railroaded. They already know the outcome. They want him to die. Now they have to find a reason, a legal reason, that they can go back and say, we tried him, we found him guilty. But it's not a real trial. It happens in the high priest's home, not in the courts. Let's keep reading. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death, but they couldn't find any. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. So this is not a Roman court. He's not being tried on Roman law. He's being tried on Jewish law. So what are some of the charges that they would be able to find him guilty of death? Well, there are religious charges in Exodus chapter 23, 22, verse 20, we read, anyone who sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Idolatry would make Jesus worthy of death. That charge didn't work. Sexual charges in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 22, starting to read in verse 23. Suppose a man meets a young woman, a virgin who's engaged to be married. He has sexual intercourse with her. If this happens within a town, you must take both of them to the gates of that town and stone them to death. No. That wouldn't work for Jesus. His dealings with women were all above board. Exodus chapter 21, verse 20, another charge that would be guilty of death. 21:12, anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death. Murder. That didn't fit for Jesus. Dishonoring one's parents. Same chapter, Exodus 21, verse 17. Anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. Wow. That's quite a penalty for the charge of dishonoring your parents. You certainly can't say that Jesus dishonored his parents. 21:16, kidnappers must be put to death. Now, Jesus wasn't guilty of that either. When you look at the possible charges, according to the Old Testament, for which they might have found Jesus guilty, he wasn't guilty of any of them. So when the false witnesses began to speak out against Jesus, they couldn't agree on any charge that was worthy of death. Finally, back in Mark chapter 14, we read what they could agree on. Mark chapter 14, verses 57 to 59. Finally, some men stood up and gave this false testimony. We heard him say, I'll destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I'll build another made without human hands. But even then, they didn't get their story straight. They remembered what Jesus said about the temple. Of course, he was referring to his own body. In his death, his body would be destroyed. In 3 days, God would raise it up. He likened that to the temple. The false witnesses said, he said he'd destroy Herod's temple. Magnificent, huge, enormous building. Then in 3 days, he'd build it up again. Herod's temple at this time had been 47 years in building, and it still wasn't complete. It was about a year from being finished. But that is not a charge worthy of death. Maybe the sayings of a madman in their mind, but it's not worth death. It's not a capital offense. Now we know why Jesus had to die. He had to die for a very different reason altogether. They had to find excuses for their death penalty. People accused Jesus of a lot of different things. Things that he was never guilty of. It still goes on today, doesn't it? People look to Jesus and they want him to do what they want. As a result, they accuse him of many different things. What about you? Do you believe Jesus should be doing what you want? Have you accused Jesus of doing different things? Please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you use to listen to this devotional. If you have questions, email us at questions@becomehope.com. Tomorrow, we'll see the real charge